Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and welcome to my astrology channel. Now, this week I'm going to be talking about the new moon in Cancer, and this is rather a special new moon in Cancer because it's right at the opposite point in the heavens, in the zodiac, to the planet Saturn. But I'm also going to be talking about the arrival of the sun in Leo, and in reference to how important it is to know exactly when the sun moves into a new sign. And I'm also going to be talking about the next couple of days where the sun is going to oppose the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and that's on the 14th and 15th of July. Now, when it comes to the new moon and its opposition to Saturn, I'm going to be looking at that from the perspective of every sign. But I want to sort out these other couple of things first because they're all part of our journey at the moment, part of, the narrative of our times, as I often say. And really, we are living in interesting times, and the astrology really does reflect our journey. So you've heard me talk quite a bit about the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, and I've written about it a lot as well. And why I'm going to be talking about it to begin with here today is because as soon as something like the sun, this great big star of ours, is at the opposite point of the zodiac to the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, it kind of awakens its potential. It brings it out. And we know now, having worked with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction pretty well for most of the year, we can see its boom-bust effect. The idea that Jupiter inflates its principles of expansion and increase, linked to Pluto's of elimination and transformation, we can see just how powerful this has been, both in terms of the power grabs when we look at Putin now in power for the rest of his life pretty well. And we're also looking at the way China is encroaching, increasing its territory, how very Jupiter-Pluto. And of course, we're looking at this mass pandemic with the surge in cases off and on that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. When we think about April, early April, just before Easter, when we saw the real first huge rise in cases in the UK, and we saw it in the US and other places in the world. And now here again, Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, end of June, just coming into July, and this huge surge of cases all over the United States and in Australia and in Serbia, and in fact in many places in the world. Brazil, I mean, just so many parts of the world really at the mercy of this very infectious virus. So with the sun in opposition to Jupiter and Pluto, we get the great and the good out of this. And whenever we look at Jupiter and Pluto, we think about mass success, about terrific, as good as it gets. So if, for instance, you were launching your career this week, as we come into the opposition to Jupiter and Pluto, we would be looking at the potential for this to take off like gangbusters. But the other side of this very powerful, mighty couple is also the idea that things get out of control. They spiral out of control. And when that happens, we really need to bring an end to something, an abrupt end, to bring it under control. And in many ways, that's just like what we do with the virus is in inspiring lockdown. So we just lock it out, we stop it immediately. But let's move on. Let's now talk about the sun entering Leo on the 22nd of July. It does that at 8:37 UTC, that's universal time. Now the importance then is that right up until 8:37 in the morning, the sun was in Cancer, or is in Cancer. And as we come past that point, it enters the sign of Leo. And I've got a very interesting story here because 7 years ago, Prince George was born. And I happened to be in Amsterdam. I was in transit on my way to Sweden. So I was in this hotel and actually writing about the birth of Prince George from my bedroom. The thing was that I was under such short kind of time span. The article had to be filed in like 2 hours. And so I made a guess. I thought, well, the sun is about to change into Leo, plus the moon was about to go into Aquarius. We were just on that full moon threshold. And I thought, right, obviously he's been born. So we'll do the sun in Cancer and the moon in Capricorn. But of course, I wasn't 100% sure, and I had to hedge my bets and think, what's going to be safer at this point is to say the sun is in Leo and the moon is in Aquarius. But of course, they didn't announce the birth until much later. The birth had happened much earlier in the day, and I had to completely rewrite my article because the sun was indeed in Cancer and the moon was indeed in Capricorn. And this made a huge difference to Prince George because of the whole picture of his chart. And one of the things I want to point out with George is that he's 7 years old this birthday. And if you think about Shakespeare's 7 Ages of Man, that is in sync with the Saturn cycle. Every time Saturn has gone 7 years, it squares itself, it opposes itself, or it conjoins itself. And we can map our lives in these 7-year cycles. And for George, this is really a very minor coming of age, because on his 7th birthday, he will stop being so much in the womb, as it were, in the prism of everything from his family, and he'll begin to really develop his own character. He'll be out there in the world of school and other things that happen to 7-year-olds, and we'll see this new kind of Prince George emerging, much more who he is. And of course, that's the same for any of you who may have children who are approaching their 7th birthday at this time. Every child will have Saturn squaring Saturn. But let's move on now and let's look at this new moon on the 20th of July. All new moons are about new beginnings, and we get 13 of these a year in different areas of our horoscope. And they can be very small, very minor things. We can stop some activities and begin new ones. Or if they turn out to be in a very important part of our charts, our natal charts, we can have really big new chapters open. We can get married, we can have babies, we can move house, start a new job, and these become our life milestone. Now, this new moon is interesting because it's right at the opposite point in the heavens to Saturn. The new moon is in Cancer, Saturn in Capricorn, and it's really giving us mixed messages, because with the idea of a new chapter opening and new beginnings, and of course we begin the waxing cycle, so things are set to grow, and we put Saturn in the midst, and it is the opposite message. Saturn constricts, it restricts. So we could say we have an opening or a new chapter that opens, but in restrictive and slow circumstances. It doesn't get an immediate kickoff. So if we look at this again from the solar perspective, we can see things about the homeland, where we think of as home. And the opposition point is Saturn, up there in the 10th solar house. So we're looking at, in many ways, the idea of the impact of circumstances on our home lives. So is this perhaps the idea of the government getting involved with us again and saying restrictions? Well, that will certainly be the case in certain parts of the world. But we may also see it from our job, because our job is our 10th house matter. And so we could see perhaps our job impinging on our domestic circumstances, maybe the classic dilemma of the work-life balance in our lives. Or we could also see it, as I said, in terms of the government and those things that we appear that are our authority, if you like, in opposition to who we feel we are centrally in our own person. So this could be a new moon that spreads itself out in a way in terms of the conflict of the people against the government. And we probably see that quite a lot in different parts of the world. But now let me take a look at it really from sign to sign. If we start with Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, we do see it, in fact, in these classic ways. We see the new moon taking shape at the base of the horoscope in opposition to Saturn up in the 10th house of career and life direction. So we would be thinking here perhaps of circumstances very related to our home and our domestic surroundings, our family. So it may be that there are some new things coming into family life, but we're not initially very happy about them. Either it's going to take a lot of work, or we feel that things are really not as we wanted them. We have to do a kind of Saturn acceptance of circumstances we're not very happy about. It may mean, for instance, if we had a planned home move, we can't move now because of circumstances, or the sale doesn't go through. We may be looking at perhaps planned events that we'd had for the family, maybe even things like weddings, perhaps, or christenings, now not being able to go ahead at this time because of circumstances. Saturn has a lot to do with time, so the timing is wrong. But that also means that things can come together in time. So maybe we're looking at more of a delay. So some of the things related to home and family, our roots of life, coming in a little bit later, just not now. If we look at the opposite sign, if we come to Libra, we've got everything reversed. We've got the new moon at the very top of the chart in the area of life direction and career. So we could be looking at some changes, positive changes in the area of career, maybe an offer if you've been out of work, or maybe a new part of your career journey opening up even within the same company or within the same sphere. Yet it's got a protracted beginning. It can't start right now. There are things that are getting in the way of that opening, whether it's timing, whether it's to do with practicalities, whether it's to do with circumstances beyond our control. That new beginning, essentially to do with our place in the world, and that can be our status, as well as it can be sometimes defined by our career, and also ambitions for Libra. Sometimes I get people writing into me and sort of saying, I don't work anymore, I don't have a job, I'm retired, so what else can happen to me instead of career? And I always say, well, everybody has things that they plan and hope to do in the future in the way of personal ambitions. So this is still life direction in those terms. So again, we're looking at a delay or circumstances beyond your control, changing the shape of that ambition or that particular event. If we look at it from Cancer's perspective, here we have Cancer, the new moon is in your sign, and one of the more important events having a new moon in your sign, because this is new beginnings in your personal life. We look across the zodiac and we come to the 7th house where Saturn is seated. So we have this idea that it's other people that are either raining on our parade as Cancerians, or that there are delays in terms of events that we have planned with other people. And of course, I'm thinking here of partnerships per se. Perhaps there's a formalization of a business partnership, or perhaps you're expecting affiliations with other companies, and there will be delays involved because of Saturn being in the 7th house. But of course, Saturn serves a very good purpose in the 7th house because, good word for Saturn, consolidates. So it may be a time when you consolidate an agreement. And what we're seeing in this new moon is the consolidation of a relationship by marriage or by some other kind of very formal agreement. And that's a good thing. But on the other side of this, if we look at Saturn, sometimes in his role as the party pooper of the zodiac, of the planetary team, of perhaps showing us where our plans are unworkable, it may be that a relationship suffers at this time. Why does it suffer? Maybe it's run out of road. Or maybe we're just looking at timing again. The timing was wrong and this relationship cannot mature as we hoped it would. Now, if we look at the opposite sign and we look at Capricorn, we know that Saturn is in the sign of Capricorn. You are embracing Saturn, your ruling planet, and the new moon is at the opposite side of the zodiac in the area of relationships. So it could mean that a new relationship has a very slow and protracted beginning. Isn't this like it happens sometimes? We meet somebody and all the signals are going off. We feel really excited about this person. Or we can even look at it in business, a really exciting connection with another company or an affiliate or a business partner, but it can't go forward. The reason being there are other contracts that are getting in the way, they have to be cleared. There's a delay because the person we just met has to go over to the other side of the world. They're committed to doing something there. So instead of being able to go forward seamlessly into this opening, this new opportunity, it's held back, it's delayed. Well, of course, Capricorn, as you know, you are Saturn's child, and you are well used to delays and disappointments. They're part of life's journey. And the way almost always to deal with that is to look at it and the practical side of things, is to really figure out, how practically to deal with a situation. And by doing that, it moves you forward. Often when things happen and we're thinking about relationships with both Cancer and Capricorn, we don't like it when things can't go forward or they have to end. But what always follows an ending? Yes, I know you're saying this. A new beginning. And that's part of our huge life cycle. So if we come now and we look at Gemini, we're looking at the new moon in the second house, which is the area of finance. So we're looking at ostensibly a new financial opportunity. Now, is that because you get an income rise, because your job now entails new things, so you're earning new money, more money? Is it an investment in your talents? You're putting money into your own talent? Or is it something a little bit more to do with your self-worth in terms of who you are as a person? And so this is a new look, a new beginning, something that's coming into the arena that gives you a whole new feel about yourself. We're looking at an increase in self-worth. But hold the phone. What do we have at the opposite side of the zodiac? We have Saturn. This again, we're looking at delays and frustrations of, that bright potential of new income, or of this kind of new aspect or dimension of our self-worth, Gemini. It means things have to be worked at a little more. Maybe you've got the basic idea, you've got the basic threads of something that will bring more money in, or give you a higher profile, or whatever it is you're seeking to do in relation to your self-worth. It's going to take a little bit more work. But however much we complain about it, taking longer than we thought, when it's done, when it's achieved, there is that great sense of knowing, I didn't want to have this delay, but it's been really worthwhile. When we look at the opposite sign and we look at Sagittarius, we can see that Saturn is in the second house, and it has been there for a couple of years. And there are a lot of, Sagittarians who've had money struggles. It's been hard to earn a crust, or maybe money's been a responsibility. You've had a lot of management to do over money, maybe even for good reason. Maybe you've got a lot of money and you have to manage it now. You have to figure out where to put it. But the more usual interpretation of the Saturn moving through your second house is that money is a struggle. There are complications and problems and delays with it anyway. So now we look at this new moon opposing that Saturn along or across this financial axis, and we see that there is light at the end of the tunnel here. You may not be able to see that light and move into it immediately, but you've got your eyes on it. You can see that glimmer of hope in the distance. You can see where you're going. You can see that what you're working on is going to bring more money in the future. You can see the steps that you're taking right now are going to make a really big difference in terms of your financial standing, in your personal standing in the world. And if by any chance what happens instead, you receive notification that your job is ending or a source of income has come to an end, you know what? That's paving the way for new income to come in the future. And your job in the interim is to think outside the box, is to be creative with your talents, to be creative with finances. So if we now look at Pisces, we see that the new moon for you is in the 5th house. Now, if we're just looking at that new moon alone, we would be thinking about a new creative venture. So we might even be looking at a new procreative venture. So we're looking at the prospect of a new member of the family, a pregnancy, or as a grandparent looking at a new addition to the family. We may also be looking at new ways to be creative, so that if you're already working in a creative field, maybe you're I won't say sales, but you're in something advertising, it demands creativity, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're an artist, then this new moon is a sign of new ideas and new routes forward in a way that will give your creativity a real boost. Okay, you know what's coming. We've got to put Saturn in that mix. It may mean, again, a little bit like I was talking about Gemini and Sagittarius, that you've got this new opening, but there's a delay. There's work to be done. There's work to be put in. So patience is required. It doesn't mean it's going to dash the hopes and dreams of this new proposition, this new possibility coming in. It does mean patience, and it means perhaps working on it. Let's think about fertility for a minute. You know, we'd all like just to decide to have a baby, and the next month we're pregnant, but it never happens like that. And sometimes we really have to prepare the way. We have to get fit, we have to get the timing right, and maybe in a few cases we have to really work at it and get some help from the field of medicine to get ourselves pregnant. So maybe that's what that Saturn implies. We have to really work at it. Now, if we look at the opposite sign and we see Virgo, we're looking at the 11th house. So we're looking at the new moon here in the 11th house, and that's an area of collaboration. It's also an area of ideals, so that often when we've got a very strong 11th house, we like to work with people. We really see the value in teamwork, and we're really good at kind of having think tanks and exchanging ideas and really pooling resources. That's very 11th house. And startup companies, things to do with very entrepreneurial matters, are all 11th house. So we have the idea of the new moon saying there may be a new project coming in. There may be a new possibility for you to work as a team with a whole group of people, maybe even on humanitarian endeavors, or it's got a really good feeling behind it. You're doing something for the benefit of other people. But hello, what do we have here? We have Saturn on the other side saying, just a minute, great idea, but not right now. Great idea, but we can't get everybody together at the same time. Great idea, but there's a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy to go through. And that means that the wonderful opportunity is somehow eclipsed by a cloud. But Virgo, you know, you are a very industrious, pragmatic sign. You just have to work at it pragmatically, and everything will flower in the future. So now we come to my last group, and we come to what I call the fixed signs. So we look at Leo. And when we look at Leo and we think about that new moon, where it's taking shape in the 12th house. And of course, 2 days after we have the new moon, the sun will come into your sign. So it may be that whatever this new moon is saying about things being, you know, I talk about seeding in the 12th house, this very important area of the horoscope, the powerhouse of the horoscope, where our unconscious mind is seeding and growing ideas and possibilities and potential. And then it comes into being as things move out of the 12th house into the first house. So we think about something taking root quite shortly or around the time of the new moon can come into reality quite soon thereafter. Or, let's not forget, that new moon is opposed to Saturn. So great as this potential may be, as soon as you try to bring it into reality, you hit your first problem, because Saturn is saying, oh, ducks in a row, please. We're not going to go motoring forward in this way until there are a few more things put in place. I think also whenever we have a 12th house situation, there's a little bit of fog around things and we have to wait for the fog to clear. So maybe around the time of the new moon, you just are feeling your way a little bit and aren't terribly confident at this point in time, Leo. But you know that confidence will grow. And if you're patient with it, and you know it's so difficult for a fire sign to be patient when we think of something or we're presented with, a plan or an event that's to come, we want to get on with that now, 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 while we're hot to trot. But with Saturn in the mix, there's no point in being hot to trot because you'll just burn your toes. It just won't happen. So we have to apply patience to new things beginning. And that's maybe all I need to say to you is just be patient with the new things that are coming into your life. If we swing it around and we look at Aquarius, we can see that the new moon is in the area of work and well-being and also of systems. And I never tire of saying this, that we all need systems in our lives. We need organizational systems. And when we think about our day, it has a system, it has a routine to it. We wake up, we have breakfast, we don't have breakfast. We go to work, we don't go to work. Whatever it is, our day has a structure. And that is a sixth house matter. So put a new moon in there, and we look at the fact that something new is introduced into your life that's going to change your life routine. What could that be? It could be a new way of working, it could be some other factor in your life that means life can't function quite the way it did before. And we're looking at the health system as well. And this new moon is always a sign that you need to check your health and fitness levels. Is it an old injury that's playing up? Is it something that you're not attending to health-wise? Do you need your regular tests? Especially as a woman, we have our tests that we need to do regularly. That new moon is a sign of getting it done. We put Saturn on the other side of the zodiac, and we feel that this is laborful. This is not something we're jumping up and down about. We don't like going to the dentist. We don't like having our mammograms or whatever they mean. They're things we'd rather put off. But actually, you don't put it off with Saturn. You bring it forward. You say, what I don't want to do, whatever it is in relation to my health, in relation to my work, in relationship to my lifestyle. And this new moon may well bring that into the arena. You wake up and think, I really need to do this, but I don't want to do it. And when you get that statement that you're saying to yourself, you just do it. That's it. You don't wait another day, you get it done. Saturn also always exposes our weaknesses. And so what we see when we have this Saturn opposing our new moon, we see the weaknesses in the system that need to be strengthened. Our daily system, our life system, our health system, all those kind of things. Now, if we move to the last two signs, we're looking at Taurus and Scorpio. We look at Taurus, we look at that new moon in the third house. And the third house is so important in a horoscope. It's where we go out to meet other people. It's where our ideas leave our imagination and get shared with other people. It's our community. I often talk about getting our voice out there when I'm looking at third house matters. So for you, Taurus, it really is about sharing your ideas. So this new moon may mean you've got a great new idea. It may mean that it's a new idea in connection with your locality. Is it that you've got something that you would like to do within your community and you need to get out there and give ideas about how you can bring this together? This is also about education and learning. It's about movement, and it can be about travel. So we look at these ideas. Is it an opportunity to travel, an opportunity to learn some new subject? Is it an opportunity to get your ideas out there on social media, by blogging, by Instagram, whatever route you have available to? And that all sounds really good. And that's what we should be looking at the new moon too, this kind of new beginning. But hello, Saturn at the opposite point in the zodiac says, you're either doing something without necessarily getting everything in place before you do it, let's look at this idea about a new idea being shared with the community. You need to check, first of all, whether all that is correct, whether you've got the history right, whether you've got all the regulations correct. Remember, Saturn is all about rules and regulations. So you need to do your paperwork first in order to present your ideas. If you're going to write about something, you're going to write, maybe you're a journalist, or you're going to write about something. Make sure you've got those facts right. I write a lot and I do my research, but occasionally I've missed something, and then you look a right prat because you forgot to really dot the I's, cross the T's, and check that you were giving that factual story the correct facts. So that's something you need to keep in mind with your ideas, your conversations, when you're going out there to address your community or the wider world. Make sure you've got every single fact right. And if Saturn in the opposite point does delay things, it isn't just about working to make something correct. It means that maybe your ideas get a really big fat thumbs down. Keep working at it. Keep developing it. That's what Saturn likes. He doesn't want you to crumble at the first fence. Saturn is about getting out there, keeping on going, keep on keeping on. That's Saturn's way. So last of all, we look at it from Scorpio's point of view. We look at that new moon being in the 9th house of the horoscope. And that's really a beautiful area of the horoscope, because that's where we meet the world, the big world. That's where we go out on the internet. That's where we take, I was going to say a jumbo jet, but it would be an Airbus now, wouldn't it? And we'd be going to the other side of the world. We'd be visiting countries and connecting with people in different places. And we'd understand how the bigger world worked. That's what a new moon there would offer us. But of course, we can still do that virtually. We can do it on the internet. Not quite as much fun as actually boarding a plane and going somewhere. And maybe even so, with some travel restrictions being a lot looser now, some of you Scorpios can indeed travel more. But if we look at the general trend, and we know until this coronavirus is really, we've got a vaccine for it, it's going to be very difficult to get around quite as we used to. But of course, this area is also about the law. So it may be that you've got a new case. Now, this might speak volumes if you are an attorney or a lawyer. You could see a new case coming into your file. But of course, for other people, it may mean that a lawsuit is now advancing. That may be a good thing. Maybe you really want to get this settled in law. It can also mean publication. So if you're there working on your novel in the attic, so to speak, this is an opportunity now to find a literary agent or a publisher, something like that, because the new moon is saying, open this new chapter, quite literally. And with Saturn at the opposite point of the zodiac, all right, it's going to be hard work getting someone to promote your work or to be getting something in place like a lawsuit settled. But Saturn is there to say, put in the work, put in the time, and you will get the rewards. So I think I've been all the way around the zodiac. This is quite hard working without any kind of, blackboard or something that might tell me, here you are. If I have missed anything out, I do apologize. But working from memory, I think I've probably done everybody. So I want to finish up in conclusion. I want to really talk about this year as a whole, which has been such a difficult year for all of us. And I think one of the things that has come out of it is we can see in everywhere in the world, people doing things for other people, recognizing we're all in the same boat, but if we're in a better position than someone else, we do that. We pick up the shopping for an elderly person. We can do small things in a small way. And of course, some of us are doing big things in a big way. We're helping, develop a vaccine. We're working in hospitals. We're doing things that are really tackling this pandemic in a way that we can get through the other side of it. But the thing I think I want to say is that those things are big things, and we can all see how much this is really given such hope, and I think, and I want to use the word humanity in this terrible situation. That in as much as humanity is facing this huge pandemic, it's a wake-up call for humanity. What we need to develop is our humanity. And we can do this in small ways. I always say, yes, it would be lovely to do great big things in a time of crisis. And we would say and know what we did. But, we can do little tiny things. And I just use that idea of going shopping for someone who can't get out. I mean, that's a really lovely thing. And there are all sorts of ways that we can make an impact on our world in a small way that actually contributes to the sense of finding our humanity. So thank you for watching. Hope you've got lots of things to take from this video with you, and I look forward to speaking to you on my next one in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.